If a great deal of energy flows through the channels of the lower self, it can only be at the expense of the higher self. If, however, the life forces are held steadily at the higher level and are not allowed to become sexual, they vitalize the whole personality in a most extraordinary way, giving it that peculiar magnetic quality so rarely seen and so noticeable when present. Those who have sublimated the life forces into the service of the race will have little need to complain of loneliness. Love will flow to them from all sides, and their companionship will be sought by all, because they are radiating something as vitalizing as sunlight. The SR manuscript, 2 years of writings and research on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own the works of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. If you look at the seed under a microscope, you will find millions of microorganisms swimming together in search of the egg, all with the same purpose: to find the egg and to ignite the spark of life. The seminal substance is different to all substances, in that it is alive. It is a living substance. It is a small liquid portion of your own existence, and when the substance leaves your body, it is gone forever. If that substance went on to create your future child, then that loss has not been in vain. But if the substance was expended for mere pleasure, then you have just made a sacrifice of yourself and your spirit for nothing. Whilst you exist in the physical realm, you must conserve yourself. You are slowly dissipating day by day until your eventual passing from this world. In that time, the speed at which you dissipate yourself is very much connected to your sexual energy, to your seminal substance. If you have $1 million in the bank, but withdraw $1,000 every day, it may not make much difference at the beginning, but over time, as your withdrawals accrue, you will come to see your fortune dwindle. Such is the price to be paid for the chronic masturbator. He slowly eats away at his most important fortune in this world, his existence. Man is gifted with the moral, spiritual, and intellectual faculties which has given him dominion over the earth and all creatures within it. We have not been given these powers to exploit and dominate all creatures. With these powers has come the responsibility to look after the earth and its creatures. In Genesis, God places Adam in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. To sacrifice this power you've been gifted in the interests of pleasure is to submit yourself to the lower realms of life. Your testes reside towards the lower realms, your mind towards the higher. That is why the testes physically sit below and the mind sits above. The mind sits towards the heavens. The testes reside towards the animal realm. If you let these lower realms control you, you become tied to this lower plane. In Hinduism, your actions in this plane are said to dictate your next incarnation through the cycle of Samsara, which is tied to your karma. In Buddhism, there are 31 planes of existence, which include realms of higher beings, humans, animals, ghosts, asuras, and hell realms. The fate of the immoral sensualist, depending on the level of their degeneracy and sins, may be reborn into the animal realms, the ghost realms, and for the worst offenders, the hell realms. The Tirigyoni domain, also known as the animal realm, is one of the lower planes in the Buddhist cosmology, where beings are primarily driven by instinct and ignorance. Their existence revolves around basic survival and sensual pleasures, and their suffering is a result of their inability to transcend these base urges. The animals in this realm are subject to the limitations of their physical nature, constantly driven by hunger, fear, and reproduction, without the capacity for higher reflection or spiritual understanding. In this state, beings are bound to the cyclical nature of instinctual drives, unable to break free from their ignorance of the higher truths of existence. For the sensualist who lives a life consumed by lust and desire, the consequences are particularly severe. Such beings, having lived lives focused solely on sensual pleasure, accumulate negative karma that ties them to the animal realm in their next incarnation. In Buddhism, attachments to base desires, whether they be related to food, sex, or material wealth, binds an individual to the lower realms and perpetuates the cycle of suffering. A sensualist's failure to cultivate restraint or transcend the fleeting nature of these desires often results in a rebirth in the Tirangoni domain, where they are trapped in an existence of unending craving and instinctual compulsion. In the animal realm, the suffering of the sensualist is twofold. First, the physical agony of constant struggle for survival, and second, the spiritual limitation that comes from the state of their animal existence. Unlike humans who possess the capacity for reflection and spiritual progress, beings in the animal realm are unable to transcend their instinctual drives. These are the same beings we see in the animal world on Earth, though existing on different planes of awareness. The ghost realm, or Peta Loka, is a realm of intense psychological suffering, and its torment is rooted in unfulfilled cravings and insatiable desires. Unlike the animal realm, where beings are driven by basic instincts and the need to survive, the ghost realm is a place for those whose attachment to desires goes beyond mere physical needs. These beings, often depicted as hungry ghosts, are trapped in a vicious cycle of craving, constantly longing for things they can never attain. The sensualist who indulges excessively in desires like lust, greed, or material pleasure without mindfulness or restraint is more likely to find themselves in the ghost realm, as their attachments to these fleeting pleasures creates a deep spiritual emptiness that persists after death. The key difference between the animal realm and the ghost realm lies in the nature of the attachment. In the animal realm, beings are driven by instinct, primarily focused on basic survival, food, shelter, and reproduction. While animals may experience sensual desires, they do so without the same awareness or attachment that humans can have. Their suffering is more physical, tied to the cycle of survival, and they are not burdened with the mental anguish of craving that cannot be fulfilled. A sensualist who is driven by instinctual lust but has not deeply attached their desires to ego or self-centered craving may find themselves reborn here, as they are still bound by basic animalistic desires. In contrast, the ghost realm is for those whose cravings have become more obsessive and spiritually unbalanced. The perpetual thirst of the hungry ghosts is a direct result of attachment, not just to physical pleasure, but to the ego and the illusion of permanence in sensory desires. When someone lives consumed by lust and unable to detach from cravings, they generate karma that brings them to the ghost realm, where their desires become an endless source of suffering. The beings here are depicted with tiny mouths, swollen bellies, and constant hunger, symbolizing their inability to fulfill their desires. This is a psychological torment. The cravings never end, and nothing can ever satisfy them. The final realms, the realms of hell. The hell realms are usually seen as the final consequence for those whose actions are severely immoral, involving unrepentant cruelty, violence, deceit, and selfishness that causes suffering to other beings. In the context of a sensualist, those who are reborn in the hell realms are often individuals who did not merely indulge in lust or sensuality, but did so in a way that was violent, predatory, or harmful, such as through exploitation, sexual violence, or deceitful manipulation for personal gain. As these sorts have created the most negative forms of karma, they have the biggest price to pay. These realms are a place of intense punishment, and the suffering here is not just psychological or emotional, but brutally physical. For the sensualist, someone whose life has been dominated by excessive desire, whether for lust, pleasure, or material wealth, the hell realms represent the ultimate consequence of a life lived with no moral restraint or mindfulness. The hell realms are divided into different layers, with each layer offering a different form of torment. The suffering is intense and incessant, designed to reflect the magnitude of the individual's misdeeds. In the case of a sensualist, the most severe forms of this suffering are often seen as a reflection of their lack of restraint in life. Their attachment to sensual pleasure is what leads to their spiritual downfall. These realms are not eternal, however. They are temporary states of punishment meant to purify the negative karmic energy. As horrible as this may all sound, the concept of these realms can act as a wake-up call. It gives us a strong resolve to avoid the downward staircase of lust and desire. Each step down the staircase of lust leads further into suffering, ending in the realms of hell. Understanding this progression can help us to take conscious steps upward, staying mindful and restrained, and ultimately avoiding the entryway to such pain. There is also a stairway to the higher realms and spiritual states, a stairway to heaven, so to speak, that good deeds and abandonment of desire will lead you to. Your continual practice of semen retention and chaste living will provide you almost immediate benefits in this world. You will not have to wait until the end of life to experience them. By consciously choosing to refrain from lustful thought and action, we can begin to redirect our energy in a more productive way. The sexual energy can always be sublimated into more useful channels. Furthermore, you do not need to be an artist or genius in some field to reap the creative benefits of your abstinence. What effect will the sublimation of the life forces have upon your nature if you have no creative talents to turn them to use? First of all, they will give you a peculiar sense of poise, and this sense of poise will soon be reflected in the alteration of your body's carriage. There will also come an increased intellectual alertness and a power to penetrate the nature of things. In fact, there will be a curious quickening and intensifying of all your higher faculties. The most marked change, however, will come in your relationships with other people. They may not understand what it is they feel, but they will soon become aware of something best described as personal magnetism. There is a curious buoyancy of spirit that arises when the life forces are circulating on the upper arc, along with the freeing of the mind's capacities. The sublimation and dedication of the life forces will give personality to the most commonplace character, dignity to the clumsiest figure, and spiritual beauty to the homeliest face. I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me, said our Lord. The uplifted consciousness draws towards itself all that is highest in every human heart. The soul that dedicates its life forces to service will have little reason to complain of loneliness and neglect. Your attractiveness, your charm, your health, your intelligence, your spirituality are all manifestations of your life force, the powerful accumulated energy that is uniquely and unmistakably you.